I love how you're long-winded. I've seen other interviews. This is the place for long-winded. This is the place for approaching pretension. Okay, I want you to be open about.
Did you just call me long-winded, man?
Yes, because I'm long-winded. You haven't even talked yet, and I'm talking.
Netflix, get this motherfucker off the screen right now. How dare you?
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Delroy Lindo is an actor. He sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. I would love you to start by talking about the formative experience you had playing Herald Loomis.
Oh, wow.
In Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Yeah.
And what led you to say this years later about that experience? When you're examining material, start by looking for that which resonates for you personally and make that your foundation.
Right.
I always talk to actors about their preparation process first. And I think that talking about foundation like this and learning about that during that very, very formative experience, I would love to hear about.
Sure. Herald Loomis was one of the, my playing Herald Loomis in Joe Turner's Come and Gone remains one of the pinnacles of my achievement as an actor. The quote, I don't know what the interview was, but that I said what I said that you quoted as a result of the fact that I remember distinctly it was a Saturday matinee in Boston. Intermission. And I was laying on my back backstage. I would never go to my dressing room. I was laying on my back backstage in the dark. And I had an epiphany about me playing Herald Loomis. And I spent the next 5 productions deconstructing and articulating for myself what that epiphany had been that brought me so much closer to Herald Loomis. And the epiphany that I had was a very, very personal, a deeply personal component of my life. And that unlocked something for me. Now, when I say it unlocked something for me, it didn't present me with the performance in whole cloth. I then had to go about finding it, but I had a very specific direction. And prior to my playing Herald Loomis in Joe Turner's Come and Gone, I had played Walter Lee Younger in two productions of A Raisin in the Sun. I played it at the Kennedy Center in DC, and then we took that same production to the Wilshire Theater in Los Angeles. And I didn't have the same epiphany, but I felt very close to that character. And my work on both those plays resulted in my having to investigate myself very, very deeply and bring some of the things that I was attempting to bring some of the things that I was discovering about myself to the characters that I was playing. It worked for me when I was playing Walter Lee. It worked for me much more dynamically and powerfully in my process of playing Herald Loomis. And because what was working for me came from a very deep and personal place, that is what led me to make that statement.
How do you keep accessing that then every night?
Going through acting school and then working in the theater, one is developing that muscle of 8 performances a week. 8 performances a week. And it's like being in the gym and doing reps. 8 performances a week. And one is sculpting and honing and shaping one's instrument so that one can do that. 8 performances a week, not 2 reps, not 3, 8. And so the more one does those reps, the more that becomes a part of one's instrument, the more developed that muscle becomes. And it is not a question of doing the same thing 8 times a week. Mm-hmm. It is a question of attempting to have your instrument honed to the point where you engage the material so that it is slightly different for those 8 times. You're still, as long as you're serving the story. The saying in the theater, the play's the thing. The play's the thing. As long as you're serving the narrative. And the same is true, frankly, working in film and even in television, even though those two processes are very, very different. But the story. What's the story? What's the scene about? How does the scene serve the story? And what is my relationship to all of those things?
I have to jump to the Five Bloods because it's related. Did you worry about the MAGA aspect of Paul because you were worried that that might prevent you from connecting to this character in the way you were just talking about? You're shaking your head.
No. I'm shaking my head because I had to get past that. Of course, I would have rather not played it. No, I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to say I would have rather not played a MAGA hat wearing. I'm not saying that. You know why? Because I am a MAGA hat wearing person. So my job then became to answer the question, why am I a MAGA hat wearing person?
Right.
And that was the process of, that was one of the initial processes that I undertook. That was one of the very first questions I had to answer for myself. Why in the fuck? How in the fuck?
But I find it interesting that you wanted him to change it first, though, Delroy. I mean, if like any other characteristic, I don't think you would ask to have changed. That means it was a fear. Like I would be
not a fear, a revulsion.
Yeah.
No, I'm being I'm being very, very serious. You're in New York. You're in New York, right?
Yes.
Are you a New Yorker?
For 28 years, yes.
28 years. So you know that person from the 80s and the 90s.
Oh, yes.
And you know that
I still know them from back home. Yes.
Okay.
From Pennsylvania.
You know how repulsive.
Yes.
You know how repulsive
yes.
A human being that is. So it was a revulsion at the prospect of wanting of my director needing me to play somebody who wore that hat. But listen, let me just say this, and this is important. On some level, it had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was merely the vessel.
Yes.
Who I thought was going to be my savior. It could have been anybody who came along and persuasively said to me, all of your pain, all of the loss, all of the disconnection, all of the disaffection that you have experienced, I can make better. I can fix it for you. All the time, it's really important to understand, and I'm sure you do, I'm a man who, I volunteered for 3 tours of Nam. I wasn't drafted, I volunteered. Which speaks to an intense love of country.
Right.
An intense commitment to duty, to doing my duty as I see it. And to come home and to be spat on and to be reviled in the way that I was. After 3 fucking tours, man, in addition to which I then lose my wife in childbirth. I then disconnect from my son, whom I'm estranged from. All of those things. cumulatively resulting in loss, disaffection, disconnection from self and from society. And here comes this vessel who says, I can genuinely make it better for you. Trust me, I can. And I need to trust. Could have been anybody, could have been Santa Claus, it could have been whomever coming along and persuasively saying, and that's an interesting thing, Santa Claus. If Santa Claus had come along and said, I know that there are a lot of people who don't believe I really exist, but I exist. And I'm going to show you how I exist. And not only am I going to show you how Santa Claus exists, but I'm also going to, part of my showing you how Santa Claus exists will be in what I give to you, what I present to you, and how I improve your life exponentially. And I needed to believe that after all these years of loss and being kicked in the ass. I needed to believe that. It could have been anybody. It was him. And that's why I cast that vote. That's why I'm wearing that hat, because I need to believe.
I just saw it again last night. So this is post January 6th. Your performance does something to me where I felt this empathy for these people.
Good.
And I didn't.
Wait,
it was shocking.
Hold up. My performance caused you to have empathy for those people?
Only because you're wearing that hat. You were saying some things that those people say.
Yes.
I was mystically affected.
I hear you, and I understand why you would say that. There's a very distinct and critical difference between Paul's Trumpian-ness and the Trumpian-ness of those people who stormed the Capitol. No. Let me say this.
Yeah.
Let me say this. My belief is that what the people who stormed the Capitol and all the people who have been, that Trump has been connecting with and bringing to the fore in the last 5 years, their connection has to do with the maintenance, the maintaining of white supremacy.
Yes.
That is not Paul's connection.
Yes.
To state the obvious.
Yes.
Now, as a component of maintaining white supremacy and the fact that we should be, the people who stormed the Capitol are saying, this is our America, and because this is our America, we should be on the top, and everybody else is below us, to the point where not only should you be below us, you shouldn't even be here. And if you take it a step further, they would say, you know what? You shouldn't even exist in our world. You don't belong in our world. This is our world, and we belong here. You don't. That has nothing to do with why Paul cast that vote in 2016. Even though in very, 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 very broad terms, I understand the disaffection. But the genesis of the disaffection is completely different.
Everybody's got their reasons. You know, that's from like the rules of the game. Everybody has their reasons. Like that is what I think I've where my empathy came in.
That's
like,
brilliant.
You know,
brilliant.
Paul had his reasons for backing this madman, this fascist.
So look, you're thinking like an actor right now. Everybody has their reasons, and your job then becomes to find out why. What's your reason?
Yes.
And I would say everybody has their reasons. If I take, classically, if I'm playing an axe murderer, for God's sake, God forbid, but if I'm playing an axe murderer, there's a reason I'm picking up an axe and chopping up person X or persons X.
Yes.
In the Cider House Rules. I don't know if you saw that film.
Long ago, yes.
Okay. I do something in that film that is completely reprehensible, but that's not my job. My job is not to judge Mr. Roth as being reprehensible. My job is to understand, why do you do that? To your point, everybody has their reasons. How did that come about? Understanding, empathy, empathy, empathy.
An actor a couple weeks ago talked about something, and I said, wow, I need to talk to actors about this. I haven't talked about this. I want to ask you it, but I want it to be framed in you talking about the day you filmed that monologue in the jungle. I want to talk about that monologue, which is one of 2020's high points, acting moments. I saw it again, just as powerful as when I first saw it. So you hit something in that, but I want to break down a little bit of that day of filming that monologue. But also the question that this other actor talked about was the idea of how actors conserve energy. You show up on the set, you're ready to go, but they're not ready yet. So you're at a point of ready to go, and you may not be able to let that energy out in a useful way for hours. The idea of conserving energy and then talking about that monologue on that day. Were you worried about that scene?
No, because I had prepared as best as I knew how. And so that when preparing involved learning the words and committing the words to memory, which I don't like to do ordinarily, but I had to because it was a long monologue, and I knew that I did not want to be worried on the day that we filmed remembering the word. I didn't want to be struggling to remember the words. So there was the process of committing the words to memory. And then there was the process of coming to terms with emotionally what's going on with me, for me in that moment, and then working on that in the scene. You said something about the waiting and set not being ready. The only way that I know how to respond to that is to try my best, and Spike spoke about this. The only way that I know how to address that is to not show up on set until they are ready. And the way that I try to do, it's not always possible, but the way that I try to do that, and this also, I think, comes from the theater. I ask the first AD to tell the second or the second AD to give me a 15-minute warning before they're going to need me. And it doesn't always work, but people make their best efforts. I don't hang around. I don't hang on set. I go to my camper when I can. If I can't go to my camper, I'll find a space off where I can be alone with myself. Not because I like being by myself, but because I know, because there is so much energy on a film set with people doing their jobs, that I need my own space to be ready as I can be, so that when set is ready, I can be ready. So I'm either in my camper, I'm either off somewhere, and I ask for warnings. Just like as you get in the theater, you a half hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes to curtain. So I will usually say, give me 15, man, or give me 10, depending on the work, depending on what the work requires. So that when I do get to set, they're ready as they can be, and I have prepared myself in the lead up so that I'm as ready as I can be when the director says action. And in Spike's case, he knows that. Most people will give you, the vast majority of people will give you that time, will give you that respect, to say, you know, this is this person's process, and I'm going to try to respect this person's process and give him the time that he says he needs.
Was it hard for you to do that monologue to the camera?
No, because, well, okay, don't be flip. It wasn't hard because Spike had told me weeks prior that I would be doing that monologue to the camera, so it was not a surprise. You know, there was the usual kind of trepidation the first couple takes, you know, not quite being where one wanted to be. But I knew he told me I was doing this to the camera weeks ahead of time. So that was not a surprise to me. And I would say after I did the first take and Spike said, don't stop. The first take, I came through the underbrush and I stopped and I looked around and then I started talking. And he said, no, when you come through, keep walking, keep talking. Because technically there's me, the actor, but there's somebody else in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Camera operator who's walking backwards and he's got people guiding him.
Yeah.
He needs to know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Don't surprise him. So Spike said, don't stop. As we did the multiple takes of the scene, we found together, myself and the camera people, there were a couple of times where I chopped down some, right?
Yep.
And he danced with me. We were now doing a dance together. And so he knew then the places where I was going to.
You can anticipate that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the more we did it, the more comfortable we all became with what we were doing. And the fact that Spike was allowing multiple takes was a good thing, because he was allowing the multiple takes, not because he was allowing multiple takes to allow for further investigation of the scene. And that was very, very, very affirming for me as an actor. And it got to a point where one was now sufficiently comfortable that one could start to improvise a couple of things, small things. And he was including that, he was embracing that. So we were all working together in tandem.
Do you believe, like I believe, that...
Yes, I believe. Yes, I believe.
I knew it. I believe that the voiceless talked through your performance. I've seen that a couple of times in my life where I felt that. I don't know where I'm coming up with that. I don't know why I'm coming up with that. I believe it. I just want to know if you believe it.
So I pre-answered your question by saying I believe, right? And I do believe. In terms of the process of acting, what I'm thinking right now is that when that happens, let it be. And I don't want to, the reason that I want to let it be is because when it's happening, you just feel it. And it does not require any verbal articulation other than to accept its existence and just go with it. And that's the reason, that's one of the reasons why, going back to Joe Turner and playing Herald Loomis, I had a couple of moments in the 3 months that we ran on Broadway in particular, where that energy was present. And of course, one didn't stop and say, oh my God, that energy is here. One just did one's job, but one was aware of the energy. One was aware of that force. And that's a phenomenon that one is gifted. You know, as an actor, as a human being, one is gifted with, gifted meaning one is, you know, given that to share with everybody.
Was your time directing giving you a similar fulfillment as acting?
Yes, absolutely. Because my time directing was educating me even more about the process of acting and educating me, edifying, illuminating for me aspects of my own work and my work with other actors that was increasing what I feel I bring to the table as an actor and as a director. And it's a really marvelous thing. It's an extraordinary thing. And it doesn't happen all the time, but broadly, I've had really positive experiences as a director. And it's an extraordinary thing to communicate something to an actor, and the actor understands it and can embrace it and allow it to inform their work. And then you see it and they feel it, and the whole train is moving forward in the same direction. So the answer is yes, 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 and yes.
You're going to accept an award a couple nights from now, the New York Film Critics, and you know, there's talk of other awards to come. I mean, how do you, as to in my mind, a true actor's actor, how do you navigate this side of it, the awards for this thing? I mean, you're talking about this thing in mystical ways here. You're talking about this. This is is mystical the wrong word?
No, that's your word, and you're no. Listen,
I'm talking about for you.
You're entitled to use that word, but please finish. I interrupted you.
Well, I mean elusive ways. I mean you're tapping into other things. You know, it's about yourself. This is not just work for you. This is your life. You're tapping into your own life. You've always been doing this. This is if they didn't pay you, you'd be doing this because it's your.
Yes.
I mean.
But don't tell any producers I said that. Don't tell them I do it for free. Do not tell them that.
So this is much more than that. That's what I mean. You're that kind of actor. And how do awards fit in that for you personally? That's what I want to know.
Right. It's a fair question. And the job now becomes the job in the face of this recognition and all of these rumblings, the job, and I swear to you, I don't want to come across as pious. The job becomes keeping your feet on the ground and continuing to work, man. Because that's how I got here in the first place. You know, there's that cliche, right? There's that cliche that says the minute you start believing your reviews, you're done. And it's true. And what it's not to say that one can't appreciate good reviews. But what do you get? Again, all of this is cliche right now. But, you know, what do you do when you get a bad review? Do you stop? Do you say, oh, shit, that person's right? No, you continue working. And so to your question, my job right now is to keep my feet on the ground, put the trash out when my wife says, put the trash out, go to the post office and pick up the mail, go to the store and buy groceries, and keep your damn feet on the ground, and don't do everything I can not to get too big for my britches, while at the same time accepting all these wonderful things. But keep your feet on the ground and keep working and keep looking forward. Keep looking forward to the next one, to the next job. I swear to you, that's the gig. That's the gig. And look, my work as an actor has never been received quite in the way that Paul is being received. But I have had rumblings of the O word for a couple of things that I've done in the past. And guess what? It didn't happen. Oops. So although I admit I've never had it like this, but the point I'm making is in the instances in the past where it didn't even happen, I didn't even get a nomination when people were saying, I'll tell you something. I'm going to tell you this. Right after Cider House Rules had come out, one of the reviews said, one of the reviews in the newspaper in black and white, it said words to the effect, this is Delroy Lindo's Oscar performance. One of the people from the studio called my agent at the time and said, this is his Oscar year. And the reason that I know that is because my agent picked up the phone and said, guess who just called? Guess what they said? This is his Oscar year. I have a trivia quiz for you, Peter.
Michael Caine.
Boom. Booyah. So the point is, the train, it went in a different direction.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else. I went to the Academy Awards that year, and my wife and I were sitting in the back of the theater, and all the other people associated with the Cider House Rules were sitting down front.
Mm.
My wife and I were sat in the back. You're shaking your head. So, and well, may you shake your head. Didn't get a nomination and was also treated in such a way that, this is what I'll say, is that to your question, keep your feet on the ground, embrace the moment, accept the moment. Yes, it's wonderful, but keep your feet on the ground and keep working. That's how I handle it.
Delroy Lindo, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Peter, I hope I wasn't too long-winded, man.
I needed more long wins. Come on. I'll come to your house. We don't need to do this online. Yes, I will. COVID protection. COVID protection.
I will call the cops. You show up at my house, I'll call the cops. Trust me.